الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. نريد الشريف together. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما هذه الحياة الدنيا إلا لهو ولعب وإن الدار الآخرة لهي الحيوان لو كانوا يعلمون. صدق الله العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator, our provider, our sustainer. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us another opportunity to come and to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The purpose of insan is to be in this dunya to worship Allah, to do whatever we can to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has taught us how to live inside this dunya. كن في الدنيا كأنك غريب أو عابر سبيل. That live in the dunya as if you are a wayfarer or a traveler who comes, or someone who intends to travel. He knows his purpose of going wherever he is going, what he needs to do, what he needs to take, how long he will be there for, and everything which comes inside that. And the same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us into the dunya in order for us to reach our ultimate goal. And that ultimate goal is to be in the akhirah. And in the akhirah, in the stage that we get there and we are the inhabitants of Jannah, inshaAllah. When a person knows what his ultimate goal is, only then is he able to work towards it. But when he has a bit of confusion in his mind and he is not able to really understand where he is going, what he is doing, then it will be difficult for him. And sometimes he can change and think that his ultimate goal is dunya. And this is where shaitan is very clever, and he can put it into his head that you have to work hard and make sure you're doing everything in the dunya. And because of such a thing, he disassociates himself with the akhirah, and he forgets all about the akhirah, and he thinks that the main goal is the dunya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions بَلْ تُؤْثِرُونَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيا, that you think the life of the dunya is better for you. وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى, but it is the akhirah which is better for you, and it is everlasting. Knowing that we have to leave the dunya one day is the thing which will help us to remember our purpose of being in this world. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when we look into why a person gets attached to the dunya, it is because of a few things. Because of having so many responsibilities, and because of knowing I have to do this and this and that. So the stress of these things makes him feel that if I work harder and if I go more into it, then I will be able to gain more from it. Whereas Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that I do not fear poverty for my ummah. I do not fear poverty for my ummah. And every single person, they will get what they need. The fear that I have for my ummah is that they will be presented with the dunya, the way that the nations before were presented with the dunya. And after it being presented to them, that they will compete with one another to try and gather as much dunya as possible. But the way that the dunya, the nations from before, they were destroyed, that same thing will happen to my ummah as well. This is the only fear that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had for this ummah. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that once the person has the love for the dunya in his heart, it is the root to all evil. Hubbud dunya ra'su kullu khatiya. It is the root of all sins. That when a person thinks that this is the way that I have to go, that this is what I am going to get, this is how I'll get more and more, then it will be very difficult for him. The same way that when a person, he has a disease, when a person has a disease, it spreads all over his body and it is difficult for him. His body has trouble and problems. So the same way, a person can have a spiritual disease as well. When he has a spiritual disease, it will affect his soul. And these spiritual diseases that we can have, it can be greed, arrogance, jealousy, vanity, these kind of things, where a person, because of his love for the dunya so much, that he is competing with every single person, that he wants to have more than that person, he wants to have more than the other person, and he is greedy so much that he then becomes jealous. That he becomes jealous of a person, that why did that person get it, and may Allah take it away from him and give it to me. Whereas this is completely wrong and haram. And this is slowly going into the children and the youth of today. Now when we look into the environment and the households that we are living in today, every household has devices. And every child, they sit and they watch on their iPads and their tablets and the TV. And what comes up every few minutes is advertises that this new toy has come out and another new toy comes out. So every single time they see on the advert, and what happens in the hearts of the child, that I want that toy. And then when you see the next one, I want that toy as well, and I want that toy as well. And this is a way that dunya, it tries to grasp a person from a very young age. And then we look into the life of adults, and adults are the exact same as well. Whereas with children, they are innocent and they don't know what is right for them and what is good for them. And it is down to the parents to try and mold that child and to explain to them what is good for them and what is not good for them. A child who gets given every single thing that they want, they will never have the qadr of everything which is given to them. They will never be happy. As soon as something else comes out, I want that one. But if we explain to them about shukr and to be grateful and to think of those who have less than us, it will be much easier for them. As soon as a child asks for something and the parent says that you already have this one thing, a child would, somebody else who is poor around the world, they would love to have that one toy, but you have it. So don't always think of what we don't have, but think of the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And this is a way. And then when it comes to adults, we go even bigger. That we have a phone which is working perfectly fine, but the new one comes out, I want the new one. A nice better car comes out, I want a new car. So these are all things, the tricks of the dunya, that is there to deceive. That no matter how much you gather and gather and gather, it will never be enough. Never will it be enough. Imam Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, who is a famous scholar, he mentions about the dunya, that the dunya, it is like a shadow. The dunya is like a shadow, that when you look for it, the dunya is like a shadow that when you go towards it, what happens? You can't catch it. But as soon as you turn your back away from it, it comes chasing after you. And this is how he has mentioned that the dunya is like a shadow. When we go more into depth and we think of a shadow, what is a shadow? It is just it is an image, an illustration of the thing which he sees. And so because the dunya has been likened to a shadow, we have to think that the dunya is the shadow. And when it comes to the shadow is not the real thing. The real thing is the person. And this person is the akhirah. Or it is a shadow of whatever thing it is. And this is what we have to look at. The akhirah is the main thing. And we have to go towards those things which is going to get us away from loving the dunya. When we look at a shadow, the shadow, it is temporary. It will not always be there. Only when the sun comes out will you see the shadow of something. In the same way, the dunya is temporary. That we are going to be away from this dunya one day. We are not going to stay here forever and ever. And also the shadow, it gives very little benefit. Very little benefit. When we look, sometimes the only benefit it could maybe give is, if somebody is walking, we'll be able to see behind us that somebody is coming. That's what we see from the shadow. In the same way, the dunya, there are small benefits that we can get. But the most important thing is that we use the dunya in order to reach the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When a person pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will reach the goal of Jannah. And if he gets Jannah, he can do whatever he wants forever and ever and ever. And nobody will say anything to him ever. وَمَا هَذِهِ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَهْوٌ وَلَعِبٌ. Allah mentions in the Quran that the life of the dunya, it is like a play. It is like playing. Kids, when they play with a toy, what happens once they're done? They chuck it away. The same way with dunya, once dunya is done with us, when death comes upon us, we'll be thrown away, thrown into the grave. And this is the way to always understand that no matter how much we gather again and again and again, the only thing which is going to benefit is those things which we did for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When a person goes to work, he goes with the intention that I am going to provide for my family. And with this intention, he'll be rewarded for the whole time he is working. Islam doesn't say that you sit at home and just keep on reading and reading and reading. No, but everything that we do, think of it and try and think that how can I do it in such a way where it will please Allah. And this is the way to do it, by having the intention that the things that I am doing, how can I make it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The friends that I have, are they bringing me closer to Allah, are they taking me further away from Allah? If they are bringing me closer to Allah, then I'm doing a good thing. If they are not, then maybe I should ask myself, do I have the right friends? The places that I am going to, is that bringing me closer to Allah or not? So these are the things which is very important to always make sure that we are doing everything that we can to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because of trying to do that, وَإِنَّ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانِ, that the life of the akhirah, this is the best one. This is the best kind of life that we can hope for. لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ, if only people knew. Every single day, Allah gives us that opportunity again. That, oh insan, do you remember why you have been created? Do you know that you have to worship me? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need any one of us. It is we who need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we look into the lives of the Sahaba radiallahu ajma'in, we see that they had a very strong belief and yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One such Sahabi, his name was Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu. He was one of the Ashara Mubashara, one of the 10 to be guaranteed Jannah. It is mentioned about him that he was the richest Sahabi to have ever lived. And at the time of his death, his wealth, it accumulated to 660 billion. 660 billion. And that is in today's money. So he had all that gold coins, but that is $660 billion that he had. And when we look into the life of the Sahaba, they did not go running towards the dunya. They knew what they had to do, which was to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is that same example of the shadow, that you turn away from the dunya and the dunya comes running after you. They made sure that they were pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He looked after them. And this is what we have to make sure, that our priority number one has to be Allah. Am I pleasing my Allah? If something that I am doing during my day, if my job is keeping me away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I have to ask myself, what is more important? Is it my job which is taking me away from Allah, the remembrance of Allah? Or is it I have to change something? And the same way, my family members, my friends, are they taking me away from Allah? Are they bringing me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And these are the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question us about. And this is where we have to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to improve. Another Jummah has come, and another Jummah will come again. But we're always at the same stage. That how can I improve? How can I better myself? The same way that, at the end of the week or the end of the month, everybody looks into their bank account and checks, did I earn how much? Did I get more? And the same way, so that has to be there for our a'mal as well. That which a'mal have I increased in the last week? Which a'mal have I increased in the last month? What can I do better to make myself closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And one thing which a person can do, when we think of dunya, we always think of, need to get more. Our way to get more is by being charitable, by giving sadaqah, by giving charity to whoever that we can. Have you ever heard of a charitable person who is poor? The one who gives charity, you never hear of him being the one who is poor. The one who is poor is the one who is always asking. But the one who gives in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who gives for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these are the ones who are happy. These are the ones who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. And this is the whole purpose and the reason. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see where is our yaqeen. Allah wants to check where is our tawakkul. To always make sure that we are turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To not believe that the dunya is the one that is going to give us everything. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who provides. And Allah will continue to provide. So whenever we need, to always remember to ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask Allah, Ya Allah, I want to have a better relationship with you. Give me that opportunity. By asking, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give. If we don't want something, then it's not going to come magically out of the sky. We have to try our best to ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Until a person does not want to change himself, the help of Allah will not come. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does not change the hearts of a person until he himself tries to make that change. So we have to make that change if we want a better connection of Allah. If we want to please Allah, we ask ourselves, how do I do such things which will please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So it is about making that one small step. Like the hadith Qudsi that we hear all the time. A person who takes one step towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He goes running towards that person. Because he's walking to Allah, Allah will come running towards him. And this is what we have to always remember. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to help us. Allah wants to give. And Allah will provide. Allah will provide. To always remember, don't get so stuck into the dunya. Don't get so stuck into the dunya that we lose both the dunya and the akhirah. That remember, the one who turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who remembers and who understands what his purpose of life is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him. And Allah will continue to give more and more and more. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the tawfiq and the understanding to act upon whatever has been said. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.